What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Nice little 10-gamer here. Nice little 10-gamer. It's the 10 games. It's better than 14 that we had on Thursday. DraftKings randomly put out a 50K to first 555. It's pretty much full already. If you're on the fence, imagine that. DraftKings put out a very nice contest and it fills. There's, it's just a novel concept, but interesting slate tonight. We have some pretty high totals, some injury news. We also had a 4-gamer last night. I guess you could call it a slate. Teams played hockey. It was pretty ugly. Our neighborhood friendly Doctor Strange, I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but he was wearing a Doctor Strange outfit out in public. Daily Deposit Frostback had another good night, turned, I think, like $40 into 300 and change. Took a winner take all. That's his jam. He is heating up, as they say in NBA Jam. As for me last night, we like to call it a tax write-off. I decided to power play stack the Wings. They scored 5 goals. None on the power play. Holy crap, did Utah look bad. But what's going on, Clifford? What, Bacon?
Yeah, I didn't catch a lot of that game. I was watching Columbus and the Islanders. It's funny. I was telling Josh for the show last night or yesterday afternoon, the one thing I was hoping for from Columbus and the Islanders was not a 3-point game. So of course they go to a shootout. I didn't catch much of that Wings Utah game. I saw the Wings had, I think it was 14 shots on goal. I wrote about it at a different site this morning that it was only the 4th time since the 2013 lockout that a team has scored at least 5 goals on fewer than 15 shots. But it was the 2nd time in the last 4 days because the Rangers did it to Vancouver on Saturday. So a couple really weird performances over the last few days in the NHL. But yeah, congrats to Frostback. He had a really good night. I power play stacked Arizona. Pretty happy with that early Dylan Genther goal. And then just kind of stayed there for a little while, pretty much the rest of the night. But as you say, you can't hit the nuts unless you play. And that's why we're here to break down tonight's 10-game slate. There's a little bit of injury news, mostly on the blue line. Some pretty important defensemen either injured or returning here tonight. So definitely talk about that as we go on. But there are a couple what you might call primo spots here tonight. One early, one late that we'll talk about. Not a ton of concentrated ownership. There are some lines between 10 and 15%. There's a few of them, but the ownership is pretty spread out. So I think there are a lot of different directions to go on this one.
Yeah, and we will definitely talk about it coming right up. But first, hello, and thank you for joining us on this lovely Tuesday. As you know, MLB season starts on Thursday. Opening day slate locks 4:05 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. I think it's a 9-game slate there. And if you want access to all the MLB tools, including the Sims, for $1, all you got to do, click that link in the chat. Use promo code CYCLE. You can do weekly or monthly. It will renew on April 4th. If you don't want to renew, all you're paying is $1 for the week. If you want to renew, it will renew at the regular price, but it will get you a week of all the tools for $1. So if you're interested in MLB DFS and you want to give everything a nice little test run, you never used the Sims before, why not try it for $1? So click that link, promo code CYCLE. I will mention it again later in the show, but there we go. Let's get in. Obviously, you can also use that link for any other sports membership as well, just not that promo code. You can use promo code Stochastic15. That'll get you 15% off a week or a month of anything of your choice, but promo code CYCLE for MLB for $1. First game of the night, Ottawa Sens with a 3.3 total. Heading into Buffalo, the Skinny Swords have a 2.8. This would be a revenge narrative for both teams. However, Josh Norris selfishly injured himself. Clayton letting us know top stacks got updated. We truly do appreciate Clayton. He doesn't get paid enough. He needs to get a better agent. I don't know what is really going on in the mountains of Georgia, but he definitely doesn't have Jeremy Piven. I'll only take 15%, Clayton. So if you want an upgrade, 15% right here. But anyway, Dylan Cousins is healthy, and this is a revenge narrative for him. If you do like to live on the street that has narratives, Brady Tkachuk also in the lineup tonight. He said he's good to go. It's going to be Anton Forsberg for Ottawa. We don't really know the Buffalo lines. What we have in top stacks currently is Thompson, Kulik, Benson, Tuck, Zucker, Krebs, Peterka, McLeod, Quinn. On the Ottawa side, we have Tkachuk, Stützle, Zetterlund, Cousins, Batherson, Perron. As it is, like, there isn't a certain like way Buffalo can stack their top line that I'd be super interested. I know it's Anton Forsberg, but Ottawa has generally been good defensively. They have a pretty good penalty kill. I don't think I was planning on full stacking anyway, even if it was Thompson, Tuck, Peterka, something like that. I think I'm more on the one-off trains here for Buffalo, a one-off Thompson, a one-off Peterka, a one-off Tuck, something like that. I think Thompson is the one guy I would seriously consider one-offing here. That, he's coming in under 5%. Not that, once you get that low, there's a ton of guys in that area, but at that ownership, one-offing them is perfectly acceptable. We'll have to wait and see in warmups if Thompson, Tuck, Peterka are suddenly together. That's a low-owned combo I think you can get. Maybe that's fine, but it's just one-offs for me on the Buffalo side. On the Ottawa side, Zetterlund's up on that top line now. They look decent. I'm still not super excited about them at 17-4. They've gone up 1,100 since the last game, I believe. 4.5% projected ownership. They have a 3.3 road total, which is pretty nice. It's just because Buffalo sucks defensively. Their penalty kill kind of sucks. But again, for me, if I'm going to go to something on Buffalo, it'd be with Cousins and Batherson, and I'd be more likely to add in a third piece on the power play if you don't want to play Perron. Cousins and Batherson are 10K for the two-man. That's not overly expensive. It doesn't really prohibit your lineup. Until I see Zetterlund able to help Stützle and Tkachuk create, I'm going to the second line here. Again, I'm not super high on the Sens here. I like them better than the Sabres here, and I think it would be some sort of Ottawa two-stack, and you can leave off Perron to add in power play if you want, because it's a pretty good power play spot.
Yeah, I'll start on the Buffalo side. I do think I would have interest in the Sabres here for a couple reasons. One, whatever their lines end up being, it's going to be a low-owned combination because nobody has the lines, right? Yuri Kulik was out with a concussion. He's been out for like 10 days, something like that. He's back tonight, but all they did was run power play units. They did not run 5v5 lines. And they said there's a couple guys that are banged up, like Jordan Greenway. Like what Buffalo's lines are going to look like is unknown to anybody. And because of that, whatever it looks like in warm-up, they're going to be low-owned combinations. The other thing is, and this stuck out to me because this kind of flew under my radar, was one of the Ottawa beat writers, I think it was in the loss to Montreal, wrote about how Ottawa's sliding defensive numbers kind of finally came home to roost. And I hadn't really checked much since the Four Nations break. Since the Four Nations break, Ottawa's expected goals against at all strengths, 21st in the league, worse than teams like Chicago and San Jose. Goals against, again, worse than San Jose, worse than Nashville, worse than the Islanders, 21st in the league. So then I thought, like, maybe it's been longer than that. And it kind of has been. Their last 25 games by expected goals against, Ottawa is 19th in the league. at all strengths, and by actual goals against, they're 20th. Like, this team has been below average defensively over the last couple months. That's interesting to me because we know, like, Thompson and Peterka, generally speaking, have been excellent together this season, at least offensively. And we don't know what it's going to look like, but Yuri Kulik was pretty good on that top line when he was healthy. Now, before he got hurt, Kulik was down on the third line, so we don't know where he's going to be, but is it line one? If he's on the top line, it's a double center stack with Thompson then, et cetera, et cetera. But the top line of Kulik, Thompson, and Peterka, 3.5 expected goals in 145 minutes together at 5-on-5. Now, you add that really good, and their goal scoring was even higher. Their actual goal scoring was even higher than that. So you add in how good they were offensively to a Ottawa Senators team that's been below average defensively basically since the middle of January. And the fact that whatever the top line combination is, it's going to be low owned. Like, I don't know, man. I do have some interest in the Sabres, and it feels bad being in the last month of March and being like, yeah, I have interest in the Buffalo Sabres because I feel like this is Lucy with the football. But this Ottawa team has been struggling defensively for a while. Buffalo is going to be low owned. We know how good Thompson and Peterka have been. I'm going to be keeping an eye on warmups. I can tell you that much because I really do think that this is a spot, especially if you're playing a bunch of lineups. If you're in a single entry and you don't want to risk it, like, I kind of get it. But if you're playing 20 lineups or if you're mini maxing something, like, I would definitely be sitting near, whatever lineup optimizer that you use and, slotting in the Buffalo lines, because I think this is a solid matchup for the Sabres here, and they're not going to have any ownership, whatever combination you go with. On the Sens side, I agree with you on Ottawa too. Ottawa won. Like, I don't know what's going on with Brady Tkachuk. I know he scored in the last game, and he's going to have some good nights. Don't get me, because he's just a very good player. I'm wondering if he's not still injured from the Four Nations.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? He's taking practices off. His ice time is down to like 15 to 16 minutes a game. Not that he's a guy that typically plays a ton, but considering that they're, trying to secure a playoff spot, you'd think they'd be playing their best forward more than 15 to 16 minutes a game, but they're not. So I think it's Ottawa 2 for me. That second line's at 2.4 expected goals, which is fine. You don't need to be great to take advantage of the Buffalo second and third lines and depth pairs and all that. Cousins and Batherson are on the top power play unit. Ottawa draws a lot of penalties, or power plays, sorry. Buffalo's taking a lot of penalties. Buffalo's at 3.1 times shorthanded per game. Since the Four Nations break, it's the second highest rate in the league and the most of any team on this slate. So it's a pretty good spot for the Ottawa power play guys. I have no issue going to that second line, taking out Perron, putting in Tkachuk or Stützle or whatever. They're not that expensive. There's not that much ownership. But I'm going to be honest, just because of the low-owned combinations and the fact that Ottawa really hasn't been that good defensively lately, and it's Forsberg and not Allmark, I think there's a lot of reasons to play the Sabres here tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I always like Tage Thompson anyway. Like, your point about if you're making a lot of lineups makes sense because you're just going to get a really low in combo. For someone like me in a single entry, luckily it's the early game. If you work well under pressure, I think you can wait. I kind of like to have my lineup done and wait and react to the warm-ups, but I still think, like, Thompson definitely in play. Low in combo definitely in play. We'll have to wait and see what they do, though. You never know with Buffalo. Let's talk about another team that no one ever knows what they're doing. Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.2 total heading into Toronto. The Leafs have a 3.3. Toronto going Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Nylander, Tavares, McMahon, Domi, Robertson, Lawton. Scotty Lawton, first-round pick. Flyers, as far as we know, going Konechny, Michkov, Couturier, Forrester, Cates, Bobby Brink. Excuse me. And then Owen Tippett in the bottom six with a bunch of guys. Again, Toronto, it's going to sound like a broken record when we talk about Toronto. I don't really want to put words in Cliffy's mouth, but I think he's going to agree with me. I like Toronto 1. I don't like the price on Matty Nyes. $6K for Matty Nyes here is too expensive. It's also a really good power play spot. 21-7 for the Leafs top line in theory is fine. We'll obviously talk about Colorado in a little bit. We have Tampa, who's a little bit more expensive in a little bit. But 21-7 with a 6K Matty Nyes just is really expensive at that point. Like, if you're willing to spend 21,700, I would leave off Nyes and add a Nylander to make it 23,000 and just call that a day. For me, it's some sort of power play stack, and I'm building around Matthews and Nylander. I think, Matthews, Nylander as a two-man, completely fine there. You want to add in Tavares or Marner, fine. For me, I think it would just be the two-man for me. I like Marner, don't get me wrong, but the two-man is good. I think Marner would be the third guy I'd add in, but I would build around Matthews and Nylander, and I'm good with the two-man. You can add in the third if you want. Matty Nyes would be fifth on the list in terms of the power play guys. On the Flyers side, I don't know, man. Konechny, Mitchkov, Couturier at 17-3. The Leafs aren't great defensively. They don't have a very good penalty kill. However, the Flyers might have the worst power play in the history of the hockey. So realistically, I'm out on the Flyers. If you happen to get to a one-off in your 150 portfolio, fine, but this is a Leafs game.
Yeah, this is for sure a Leafs game. Again, yeah, I'll just echo what you said about Nyes. He's still too expensive at 6K. His price actually went up. Anyways, still casting projections have him at 1.44 fantasy points per $1,000. That is, I think it's the seventh worst of any skater above 6K. And there's I think seventh worst amongst the forwards. And I think there's 42 or 43 forwards or something like that. So he's just one of the worst values on the board, especially for his price. And that Leafs top line, they've had good games. They've been productive. A lot of it has come down to the power play, because at 5-on-5, that line is at 2.5 goals per 60 since the Four Nations break. That was over a month ago. Shooting percentage is a little light at 8.7%. You'd expect them to be double digits, but it's the power play where they've succeeded. And the other thing is basically since Scott Laughton got there, and it's kind of funny that it's, it might be because of Scott Laughton, but there are some games where they're not getting a ton of ice time, and that worries me a little bit. Marner and Matthews over their last 6 games are basically bang on 20 minutes. These are guys who are sometimes playing 22, 23 minutes, and it's just not necessarily the case. It really feels like Toronto's just trying to get to the playoffs as healthy as they can. The second line is interesting to me here, because the Flyers penalty kill is not great, but it's not awful, right? It's not it's not a team like San Jose or Detroit where you're just fire away against these guys. You know what I mean? And that second line with Bobby McMahon, there's at 3.8 expected goals, 4.1 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5 this year. It's not a big sample. You're looking at 75 minutes, but man, they've been really, really good together. I think that's kind of where I'd be more inclined to go. And again, if the power play gets there, like we always say, William Nylander is one of the key cogs of the power play anyway. So I think I'm more inclined on Toronto too here. 18,100, 3.3% ownership. Just because I don't feel a need to go with a fully correlated line here, just because I'm not necessarily stacking for the power play in this game. Nothing of real interest to me from the Flyers side. Konechny, Mitchkov, and Couturier could be a decent line. 17,300 on a slate this big. I'll look elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 2.5 total heading into Tampa Bay. The Lightning have a 3.9, tied for the highest total on the slate with the Avalanche. Tampa Bay loading up the top line and going Kucherov, Gensel, Point, Hagel, Cirelli, Paul, Bjorkstrand, Gord, Goncalves. I love that name, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but here we are. Pittsburgh going Crosby, Rust, Raquel, Malkin, Tomasino, Dewar. What a team they are rostering. They are master tankers. Like, you have to respect how well they tank. They stay in the games. They lose late. Got to respect it.
I mean, there's something like, I think, 5-1. Yeah, they're 5-1-1 in their last 7. That's the problem, is they're actually winning games now.
Yeah, maybe Dubas put on his SpongeBob socks and they started winning. I don't know. On the Pitt side, like, I don't mind Pitt 1, Crosby, Rust, Raquel. Like, I know they're going to see Cirelli, Hagel, Paul, and that kind of sucks. But, like, Crosby, Rust, Raquel have been really, really good all season long. It's a decent power play spot. Like, Tampa's just not great defensively by any metric. Like, Hagel and Cirelli are their best option. And they've been pretty good with Paul. But they're fully correlated. Pitt's power play with Grzelcyk there has been decent. The issue that I have with Pitt 1 is you can get Carolina 1 for $100 more, and you can get Colorado 1 for $400 more. So Pitt 1 for me would be MME. They're coming in at 2.9% projected. That's, really low. I don't think I'll get there in single entry. In 20 max, I'd have 1 or 2. You know what I mean? The more lineups I get to, the more likely I'm going to play Pitt 1. Like, I don't love them, but I don't think you should ignore them because Tampa has a huge total. It's not like they're a defensive juggernaut. And Crosby and Rust, no matter who they've been playing with, have been really, really good. The rest of the lineup, I don't really have interest in. Like, Malkin and Tomasino, been fine, but not worth that price. Malkin is on the top power play. If you want to dabble there, that's fine. On the Tampa side, Tampa 1 is $22,700, the most expensive on the night. They have a 34.4% top 2 stack, 16.8% projected ownership, which is second only to the Tampa second line. And we'll talk about Colorado later. I feel like some of this ownership is going to go to Colorado just because $22,700 with this pricing is really, really expensive. And it's not like they've been overwhelmingly dominant like a Colorado 1. You know what I mean? They're fine. 2.9 expected goals, 3.7 actual in 550 minutes, and they're fully correlated. And it's a pretty decent 5-on-5 matchup. Like, there's no matchup concerns. It's just, I don't know if I want to spend $22,700 for a line here tonight, especially when you can get a fully correlated Carolina 1, a fully correlated Colorado 1 in just as good, if not better spots. If they come anywhere near that ownership, it makes it an easier fade for me. I don't want to play chalk 22,700 Tampa 1. I think, a Kucherov one-off is fine. You want to do some sort of power play stack with Bjorkstrand? I don't know. Like, I'd be more likely to one-off Kucherov than full stack Tampa 1. I like Tampa 2, but it's 17.1% projected. That's pretty tough. Like, they've been good, don't get me wrong, and they're facing the Crosby line, which hasn't been great defensively, but at 17% at 15.2, I'm probably looking elsewhere. So I think my favorite play on the Tampa side would be a Kucherov one-off, a Bjorkstrand one-off, something like that. Like, I don't know if I'm going to full stack anything on Tampa at this ownership or price, really.
I'll be quick on Pittsburgh. I don't really have much interest on them. Like you said, if you get to them in MME, fine. But that Hagel-Cirelli line with Nick Paul, 2.2 expected goals against, 1.7 actual goals against the 5-on-5. That's a brutal matchup, and Tampa's penalty kill has generally been pretty good. So, like, if you get a few in a 150, okay, single entry. Like, there are other spots I'm going to. On the Tampa side, like, if you look at Tampa's season as a whole, the Tampa top line, it's been pretty good They've been pretty good offensively. Like you said, 3.7 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Power play's generally been one of the best in the league, or not, amongst the top 5. A lot of that came in the first couple months of the season. They're kind of like that Eichel, Stone, Barbashev line from Vegas in that sense, where they found a tremendous amount of success in the first 2 months of the season and then not really that much since. I was looking like basically in the second half, since January 1st, the Tampa top line is at 2.6 expected goals, 2.9 actual goals per 60 minutes, shooting 9.5%. It's not like their shooting percentage is bad or anything. It's, it's above average. It's not elite, but it's above average. Even if they were shooting like 10.5%, like they wouldn't be a great offensive line. They'd be good. They wouldn't be elite. I think you've seen that issue crop up with how they've handled the lineup over the last month. You have seen a lot of different line combinations from this team. Kucherov spent games away from the top line because they weren't doing anything. You saw Hagel move up to the top line and Jake Gensel move down. You've seen, Oliver Bjorkstrand take a spin on the top line at times. Like you saw Yanni Gord up there. Like there's a reason why they were trying all those different line combinations. And the reason is not because the top line's been crushing everybody. It's because they've been okay. They've been good. They haven't been anywhere close to great. So you want me to play 22,000, the most expensive line on the board for a line that hasn't really been that good for like 3 months now? I don't know, man. I think for me, it's an easy pass. And I don't like saying Tampa's at home to Pittsburgh is an easy pass because this could very well end up 7-0 Tampa, once we roll around 10 o'clock Eastern. But, I'll take the lines that have been playing well, over the last 2 or 3 months, as opposed to the ones that have been broken up repeatedly because they haven't. So I think I'm out on Tampa 1. Tampa 2, I think is definitely playable at 15,200 just because they're in a mid-price spot. So, I'd almost be, if you want to go to like Kucherov point, take out Gensel and put in Bjorkstrand or something like that, I think you can do that just to make it cheaper. I honestly think I'd be more inclined for the second and third lines here, like Hagel, Cirelli, and Paul. They've been fine offensively. 3 expected goals with a poor shooting percentage, but none are on the top power play unit. Pittsburgh's penalty kill is pretty bad. Like that's one of the reasons why I would still kind of consider Tampa 1. But if you're in a single entry, you have to make a decision on whether or not you want to play Tampa. And I'm going to be honest, I'd be a lot more interested in one-off Nikita Kucherov, one-off Brandon Hagel than I would be in full stacking anything from the Tampa side.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Every time I think about Tampa being an easy fade, I think about the game last year where they went into Carolina and scored like 8 goals on 14 shots against Antti Ranta. And I cry. We have a $75 super chat from our pal Zeeg. He says, "Hey fellas, let's say you're planning to win the big DK 555 tonight with a single entry. And you're torn between Darren Radish and Nick Blankenburg as a punt. You're also playing a Hagel Cirelli 2-man. Does the power play 2 correlation outweigh how bad Radish has been for DFS?" It's not like Nick Blankenburg has been a barn burner for DFS either. Nashville's in a really miserable spot. I mean, they have a 2.2 total. I don't force correlation with my defenseman. If I happen to get there, I get there. I won't put in Darren Radish just because he's on power play 2 with Hagel and Cirelli. But at the end of the day, he could end up being a better play than Nick Blankenburg. Nashville's just been tough on all phases of their game without Yossi, even with Yossi. But without Yossi, they really struggle on the power play. They've been struggling offensively outside of Forsberg going nuts. So I'd probably go Radish, but not because it's power play 2 correlation. I just think he's a better play.
Yeah, for me, the reason why you would consider playing Blankenburg is kind of strictly for the block bonus. You know what I mean? And Blankenburg's typically not been a guy to put up that many blocks in his career. You know what I mean? Like he's averaged like 19 minutes a game over the last 3 years, and he's at like 1.2 blocks per game. Like it's not a lot. You know what I mean? So it's not like this is a guy that puts up super high block rates going into Carolina where, and maybe he blocks 5, maybe he doesn't. But you're you're basically hinging your entire night on a guy that's not blocking a lot of shots. I'm blocking a lot of shots because I think Nashville obviously is going to struggle to score. So just because I don't really like Blankenberg here tonight, I think it would be kind of Radish by default. But thanks, Zeke. Really appreciate the super chat, and good luck tonight. Hopefully you can take down that 555. It would be nice to see.
Yeah, he must be in New York on work. Quick Party says Tampa might go back to 12-6 anyway. That would give a boost, a minute's boost to Darren Radish, maybe if he's in the lineup. But just check, yeah. New York handling some lawyer business. Anyway, let's talk about those birds. Nashville Predators with a 2.2 total heading into Carolina. The Hurricanes have a 3.4 total. Carolina going Jarvis, Aho, Blake, Hall, Kotkaniemi, Roslovic, Stankov, and Martinuk, Stahl. Nashville is going Forsberg, O'Reilly, Evangelista, Stamkos, Marchessault, Bunting, Guy. Carolina 1 is very interesting here because they're $100 more than Pitt 1. They're $300 less than Colorado 1. And they've been very, very good in a 90-minute sample. 4 expected goals, 3.9 actual. They're fully correlated. I know, like, I rolled my eyes there a little bit. Their power play is pretty bad, but it's not like Islanders bad. It's still pretty bad, but Nashville sucks. And they've been really good at 5-on-5. They're coming in at 2.2% projected ownership. It's going to be a problem to get there in single entry over Colorado. But that ownership and this matchup is very intriguing because not that there's any matchup concerns anyway, but like Stahl's going to take the O'Reilly line. And the rest of the Nashville lineup is absolute ass. Not that the O'Reilly line is anything good defensively. Like his defensive numbers have been atrocious this year, but it gets worse after that. So I do really like Carolina 1 here. I feel like it's chasing points with Carolina 2. Like Taylor Hall just had a hat trick. He is on the top power play unit, so if you want to do that, you can. I guess you could throw them in the basket of filler lines. They've been, 3 expected goals per 60 in a 60-minute sample. A lot of that expected goals helps, a Hall hat trick, you know what I mean? But they've been fine. I think Stankoven has been, like, on that third line has been fine, at least offensively in a small sample. But for me, it would be just Carolina 1 here. I think they're a very, very intriguing play in any format here. And if the power play happens to wake up at some point, it's just an added bonus. On the Nashville side, I don't think I'd be full stacking anything. I think I'd be more inclined just to one-off Forsberg. He's like Hansel and Zoolander. He's so hot right now. I think that would really be about it. But I don't particularly love Nashville here, and they have a 2.2 road total.
Yeah, I have no interest in Nashville here tonight. On the Carolina side, like it's another one of those, like most nights when they're at home, they'll have 3 playable lines. This is certainly one of them. You're right. That top line has been really, really good offensively. The big thing is like they're actually getting like decent minutes too. Like maybe you'll get Jackson Blake at the low end, like 17 to 18 minutes. And then, Jarvis and Aho will probably be between 18 and 20. So you're getting decent ice time. They're 19,400. The power play has definitely struggled in the second half. That's something that's kind of always worrisome about Carolina because as good as they are at 5-on-5, when the line is 19,400, you probably need them to come through at least once on the power play. So it is a little bit worrisome that power play hasn't really been that good in the second half. Taylor Hall has spent some time up there, really hasn't been that much better with Taylor Hall there either. So that's the one thing that's kind of holding me back here is not only has Carolina's power play struggled basically since like Christmas. Nashville's penalty kill has been good. Like Nashville's penalty kill, their whole problem was that their goaltending, their save percentage was horrific. Like they are actually pretty good at shot prevention on the PK. It's just that the shots that they were giving up were going in. But since the Four Nations break, Nashville Predators 5th fewest shots against per 60 minutes on the PK, 10th fewest goals against. If you go back a little bit further, it's like middle of the league over the last 25 games. So this is like an average penalty kill that's been getting better against a pretty bad power play. So you need Carolina to get there all at 5-on-5. So because of that, like, I do like Carolina 1. I think they're a really good line, but until I see the power play kind of come to life, it's hard to pay $19,400 for them. I think this is a situation where I'd be more inclined to use the filler stacks, whether you want to use the Kotkaniemi line with Taylor Hall, because Taylor Hall is on the power play. So if they do go off, you do get a little bit of exposure there. Stankov and Martinook Stahl is interesting to me because those guys have been high event in a very small sample. It's only been 45 minutes together, but 61 shot attempts for, 60 against per 60. They play 14 to 16 minutes. Now they're coming in with 6 to 7% ownership. But at 11,100, you can fit them in with your Colorados, your Torontos, like those types of things, even Tampa Bay. So I think this is a case where I'm more inclined to play the second or third lines. I think I would lean towards the Stahl line just to use them as a true filler. But I think for me, this is a game more about the depth than the top guys, just because I'm still worried about that power play.
And I said that's fair, but they're priced right by Colorado 1, which is an issue in single entry. Montreal Canadiens with a 2.6 total. Heading into St. Louis, the Blues have a 3 total. Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky. Line a Newhook, Roy, Gallagher, Dvorak, Anderson. St. Louis going Kyrou, Holloway, Shen, Thomas, Neighbors, Bolduc. I like Montreal 1 as a line. Don't get me wrong. They've been really, really good, and they've been really, 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 really good since the Four Nations break. At the same time, St. Louis has been really, really, really good defensively since Jim Montgomery has taken over. I'm running into a bit of dilemma there. They're 17,800, 7.1% top 2 stack, 4.1% projected ownership. They are fully correlated, and the St. Louis penalty kill is atrocious, like beyond atrocious. But they don't take a ton of penalties. I think Montreal 1 for me would be, I'm leaning towards MME here because they're going to see a lot of that Shen, Holloway, Kyrou line, and they've been nasty defensively in a large sample. So I think Montreal 1 would be more in a MME bucket, like a 5 to 20 max type deal. You know, line A one-off is fine. He's only 4,800. If they do get a couple power plays, he's probably going to be involved. But for me, Montreal's a little bit more of an MME type deal. The Blues, on the other hand, they're $700 cheaper, the Shen line to Montreal 1. They're coming in at 5.6% projected ownership. I think that would be the line that I prefer the most in this game. They're fully correlated on the Jake Neighbors unit, which has been the better unit. So for me, it would be St. Louis 2. If you want to go to the Thomas Neighbors Bolduc line, because they're $1,800 cheaper, and you do get 2 of the 3 guys on the non-Neighbors unit, I think it's fine. I just prefer the Shen, Holloway, Kyrou line. There's a much larger sample of them being better, and that power play unit has been better as well. So for me, it'd be St. Louis 2, Montreal 1 and MME. I'm fine with a line A one-off if you think, Montreal may see a couple power plays.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to sound like a Homer Slappy here, but here's the case I would make for Montreal. I was looking at 5-on-5 lines over the last 2. So since the start of last season, the Montreal top line is at 3.7 goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov are also at 3.7 goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Jack Eichel and Mark Stone are at 3.6. Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner are at 3.5. So this Montreal top line, basically outside of like McDavid and Draisaitl and like McKinnon and Rantanen, basically been amongst the top scoring 5-on-5 lines in the league. The problem with them has always been 2 things. One is ice time. Like Slafkovsky, like 17 minutes, Caulfield, like 18 minutes. those aren't the 20 to 22 minutes you get from a Mitch Marner, that you get from a Nikita Kucherov or Braden Point or something like that. The other thing was the power play. You mentioned it on yesterday's show that the Montreal power play fell apart after they traded Sean Monahan last year, and it wasn't very good this year to start with until they put Lane Hudson on there. But that top power play unit with Hudson and Patrick Laine is over 10 goals per 60 minutes, which is considerably above average. Like, that's in the Toronto range. And Slafkovsky and Caulfield are skating 19 to 20 minutes, or, you know, basically over the last 10 games. Suzuki's at like 21 to 22. So those concerns about ice time and those concerns about a bad power play are now gone. So now I think you can make an argument. You can put the Montreal top line offensively, as long as they're skating 19 to 21 minutes, you can put them in the same bucket as you would a Toronto or a Vegas one or something like that. And so you can get that for 17,000 and change at low ownership against a bad penalty kill. That's kind of the situation that I'm running into here. Like, if Montreal 1 had been playing 19 to 22 minutes all season long, this is a $22,000 line. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. That's how good they've been offensively on a per minute basis. They just haven't always gotten a lot of minutes. Now that they are, I think that they should be priced a lot higher than what they are. It is not a good 5-on-5 matchup. Even without Pavel Buchnevich, that Thomas line's at 2 expected goals against. That St. Louis second line with Shen and Kyrou since the Four Nations break is at 1.6 expected goals against. Like, these guys are buzzsaw defensively at 5-on-5. The penalty kill is bad. Montreal can easily go 1 for 2 here. You get a lucky one at 5-on-5, or, you know, a good goal at 5-on-5, and then one empty netter. Like, you can see the path where this line has a pretty good night. I kind of like Montreal 1 here. Like, if this line was 20K or 19.5 on the road, I'd be like, yeah, I'll just play Colorado instead. At 17,800, you know, in a bucket with like the Colorado second line, the Ottawa top line with Fabian Zetterlund, the Philly line, which I don't, you know, when was the last time like the Flyers top line had a big game? You know, Los Angeles, like those types of things. When you put them in that bucket, considering how good they have been offensively for 2 years now, I don't know, man. Like, I'm kind of tempted to go with the Habs, considering they're at 4% ownership. On the St. Louis side, I agree with you on the Shen line. Like, that line has been really, really good. Like, I like Zach Bolduc, but if I can, for $1,800 more, if I can go get a perfectly correlated line, and you're right about that power play unit is at 16.5 goals per 60 minutes. Now, they're shooting 25%, which is pretty high. But even if you cut down their goal scoring by a third, they're at like 11 goals per 60, which is, I just talked about how Montreal at 10 was pretty good. Like, obviously 11 is really, really good. So I think the fact that they're at home and they're perfectly correlated, I think St. Louis 2 is my favorite line in this game as well. But I think I'm pretty interested in Montreal 1 here, because I think they're vastly underpriced for the minutes and for the production that they bring.
Yeah. I still don't know if I get to them in single entry on a 10-game slate, just because, you know, of the 5-on-5 matchup and how many teams are on this slate. But again, 5, 10, 20 max, definitely getting to them. Vegas Golden Knights with a 3.1 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 2.4. Wild got shut out last night by the Stars. You truly hate to see it, but you also really do like to see it. Minnesota going Boldy, Zuccarello, Rossi, Hartman, Hinostroza, Trennan, guy. We don't know the Vegas lines because beat writers don't travel on the road with this Forsaken team. And Tomas Hertl is out for an extended period of time. Logically, William Karlsson moving up in between Dorofeyev and Saad makes sense. Karlsson taking over his spot on the power play also makes sense. We just don't have confirmation.
Well, I mean, Karlsson did take over on the power play at the end of the game after Hertl got hurt in the last one. So I think Karlsson's at least on the power play. Whether it's like Nick Roy or someone on the second line as the center, I'm assuming it's Karlsson, but just be prepared for it to be somebody different.
Yeah. I mean, if Carlson is there, and it's hard to know, like he should be, they're 12,900 going up against Minnesota 1, which is bad defensively. Philip Gustafson went last night. Marc-Andre Fleury's in net. Minnesota has a bad penalty kill, and Marc-Andre Fleury is way worse on the penalty kill than Philip Gustafson. So, like, if you want to go to Stone Eichel, that's fine. I think I prefer going the cheaper two-man at Carlson and Dorofeyev at 9,700. You want to add in Eichel for more power play correlation, that's fine. I just like Carlson Dorofeyev better because they are in a much better 5-on-5 matchup. You know, Carlson and Dorofeyev have played some this season, but it was way earlier in the season. And, you know, that's when Eichel and Stone and Barbashev were running hotter than the sun. So I don't have a problem going back to that Vegas second line. You want to go to the Vegas top line for the power play, that's fine. But again, as long as Carlson's on that second line, I prefer the cheaper of the options. You can add in Eichel or Stone if you want. Out on the Wild, I liked them yesterday. They burned me. It's not the best spot, and they're 18-5. Like, they have a low total, and their top line is 18,500. We just talked about Vegas won $1,400 cheaper. Montreal's cheaper. Like, I'm just out on Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in the Wild here. You know, I think the top line is definitely still playable, but this is definitely a situation where it'd be like 20 max and above for me. Like single entry at 18,500. I just can't get there. Like, I'd probably just, you know, pay the extra 1,000 and change and go play Colorado, which we'll get to, or just, you know, save some money and go play Montreal or St. Louis or something like that instead. So kind of out on Minnesota. I agree with you on Vegas. It's Vegas too for me. Like, it's funny. It's funny that William Karlsson got hurt earlier, because I did write about him, I don't know, like 6 weeks ago or something like that. And you could argue he hasn't put up huge points this year, but you could argue he's having the best season of his career otherwise. And then, you know, then he gets hurt and he's out for a while. But he played 19 minutes in the last game. You know, if he can kind of just sub in for Hurdle and bring Hurdle's impact, like that second line for Vegas was great with Hurdle there. Like, if Karlsson can kind of just keep that train rolling, that is a great second line for 12,900. That's a filler price as well. So for me, it's Karlsson, Dorofeyev, Saad. I really like that line as a filler here. It is absolutely one of the sub 13K lines that I'd put them in with like Carolina 3 that I would be heavily considering here tonight as a filler. You know, I think the top line's fine. I'd never say don't play Eichel and Stone, but just the fact that you can save over $4,000 and go play a line that I think is just as good, and also has two guys on the top power play unit, I would just go Vegas too.
Coach's statement right before the show has Saad, Roy, Dorofeyev line 2, and Smith, Carlson, Olofsson line 3.
All right, Eichel, Stone, Barbashev it is.
Agreed.
I mean, I like Nicholas Roy as a player, but if I'm playing Vegas tonight, it's because of the power play. This is a pretty good power play spot for them, and I don't want to stack a line that just has one guy on the power play. Like, I knew they were going to pull that Nick Roy bullshit. Jesus Christ, that coach.
As Haas would say, our beloved Haas, the coach shit in our pancakes. Washington Capitals with a 2.6 total. Heading into Winnipeg, the Jets have a 3 total. Gabriel Velarde is out. Winnipeg going Connor Scheifele, Alex Iafallo. What year is it? Ehlers, Lowry, Appleton, and then Perfidi, Nemestikov, Niederreiter. What a circus. Washington going Ovechkin, Strome, Protas, Wilson, Dubois, McMichael. This Winnipeg one line is fully correlated still at 17,600. The problem is you can argue that Gabriel Velarde is the most important part of that top line. And Alex Iafallo was up there a bunch last year when Velarde was hurt, and they were mid as the kids say. I think it was like 2.5 expected goals. And IFL is also going to be on the top power play unit. Like, it didn't hurt as bad on the power play as 5-on-5, but again, it's still not going to be nearly as good as if Gabriel Velarde was there. 17,600, 9.3% projected ownership. I'm going to take a pass. I just Alex Iafallo was a nice player years ago. This is similar to the Tanner Pearson situation. If he burns me, he burns me. I'm not playing Winnipeg 1 without Velarde, unless he was Ehlers, but the coach will never do that in a million years. Washington or Winnipeg 2, I guess, is fine. Lowry, Appleton, Ehlers, if you want to go like a 2-man of that. But I'm not super high on Winnipeg here. This is the battle of the 2 best goaltenders in the league, Logan Thompson and Connor Hellebuck, so I'm already mum there. On the Washington side, I don't have a ton of interest stacking against Hellebuck in Winnipeg. The way to get to him is on the power play, and Washington's power play hasn't been great. So really, I'm just out on this game. If anything, if I had to play a line, it'd be Winnipeg 1 just because they're fully correlated. But they're hurting real bad without Velarde. I don't think it can go understated there.
Winnipeg 1 with I followed there last year, 2.5 expected goals, 2.6 actual goals, like league average. Power play a little bit better than league average. This is a game of the 5.5 total and the top 2 goalies in the league this season. I'm not playing anybody. We can get to the next one.
Detroit Red Wings with a 2.5 total heading into Colorado. The Avs have a 3.9. Detroit back-to-back on the road after scoring 5 goals on 3 shots last night. This is a brutal, brutal matchup. I'm out. On the Wings, what to do with Colorado is the question. McKinnon, Nichushkin, Drouin, under 20,000, fully correlated, 17.2% top 2 stack, 12.4% projected ownership. Now, they haven't played great in a very small sample. However, McKinnon and Nichushkin have very good numbers together, and they basically can carry anybody. That's just small sample noise. Great power play spot. I think, if you're worried about it, you can take off Drouin and add in Netchis if you want. It gets up. I still think it's under Tampa 1 price. You can just add in Netchis, make it a 4-man stack if you want. It's definitely about the power play guys here. It's it's still a pretty good matchup 5-on-5. When Casper's not on the top line, they generally haven't been great. Now, they've been fine defensively with Rasmussen there. I just think, fine against Nathan McKinnon is really not fine. So I do really like Colorado 1, Colorado power play. Do you have to get Netchis in? No. But, I feel better with him in my lineup if I'm stacking Colorado. Colorado 2 at 17.6. Like, they're fine, but it's a really good power play matchup, and I want as many power play guys as I can. So really, it's Colorado 1 for me.
Yeah, definitely out on the Wings here. On the Colorado side, kind of agree with you. I really do like Colorado 1. And, we were talking about the top line with Nichushkin there. And I was looking at Colorado's numbers over the last couple of years. With Nichushkin and McKinnon together and Rantanen either traded or down on the second line when he was still there, 3.3 expected goals, 3.3 actual goals per 60 minutes. It's really good. It's not super elite. It's not McDavid, Draisaitl or anything, but it's pretty good. And the power play since Natchez got there is at 13.2 goals per 60 minutes. And so leaving Natchez off feels like leaving Genther off your Arizona stacks or leaving Nylander off your Toronto stacks, especially facing a Detroit team where their goals against per minute on the penalty kill since the Four Nations break is last in the league. And since over the last 25 games, third to last in the league, only San Jose and St. Louis have been worse. So, like, this is a great power play matchup. So I would be tempted to, like you said, take out Drouin, put in Natchez. I think you can take out Nichushkin and put in Natchez if you want to keep it around the same price, just because, Natchez or Nichushkin is running a pretty hot shooting percentage. But this is a game about the power play, guys. I'm not as interested in Lehkonen. I'm not as interested in Brock Nelson. This is a really good power play spot. Detroit took, I think, 5 penalties last night. It's pretty abnormal for them. Usually they haven't really been taking many penalties. If it's the start of a trend, maybe that would be nice. But this is a really, really good power play spot for Colorado. I think at the very least, I'd want to do like a one-off Nathan McKinnon or something like that. But I would be very tempted, like, just, go straight Colorado 1, 17.2%, 12.4% ownership, under 20K. I think it's okay. I would be hard-pressed to play the Avs without Natchez, though.
Yeah. More important to get to Natchez or Makar if you want 4. Just depends on your build. If you have a secondary stack that you like and you can fit him with Makar, I'd go Makar. If you want to save the $1,000 and you're fine with a 2-man, you go with Natchez. It really just depends on your build. If you have a secondary stack that you like, I'd say Makar. If you don't love a secondary stack and you're fine with one-offs, I'd say Natchez.
I would probably go Makar for a couple of reasons. One, it fills up a defense slot. And with all the pricing gimmickry and gadgetry that DraftKings has been doing over the last couple months, just finding a defenseman you actually want to play feels like a miracle. So being able to fill up one defense spot is part of it. The other is projections have Makar as a much, much better point per dollar value than Natchez. So that's kind of where I would be. I think I'd be more inclined to play Makar, like I said, because it fills up a defense spot when finding good defensemen is at decent prices is getting hard, and he's just the better point per dollar value.
Yep. Let's get to these 2 lovely, lovely late games on this slate. Seattle Kraken with a 2.6 total. Heading into Calgary, the Flames have a 2.9. We have found it. This game sucks. And we thought Backlund was going to be back. And if Backlund was going to be back, they were going to healthy scratch Sharon Govich, but it doesn't look like Backlund's going to be back. So Calgary is going Kadri, Zari, Pospisil, Huberdeau, Coronado, Frost, Sharon Govich, Coleman, Farabee. Seattle going Wright, Eberle, Schwartz, Beniers, Kakko, Neiman, McCann, Tolvanen, Burakovsky. This game really just sucks. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, Seattle's super cheap and they're getting ownership because they fit with everybody. That sucks. Calgary always gets ownership. That sucks. They also suck. I think for me, on the Seattle side, I'd be most likely to get to Wright, Eberle, Schwartz. Talked about it a bunch. If Wright has line mates, I'm interested. And they're 12,800 coming in at 2.8% projected. Beniers, Kakko, Neiman, 11.3 with almost 10% projected ownership. Like, I know you get 2 guys on both units on both lines here, like Neiman and Beniers, and then Wright and Eberle. But I much prefer Wright, Eberle, Schwartz at way less ownership. I don't really care about the matchups. Also, Calgary has a pretty bad penalty kill. It is Dustin Wolf. So again, like, I don't make a living stacking Seattle because there's 3 playable lines and you always pick the wrong one. But for me, it'd be Wright, Eberle, Schwartz. On the Calgary side, it would probably be Frost, Coronado, Huberdeau. Seattle just is bad. Like they're usually like a decent defensive team, and they have a bad penalty kill. They haven't been great defensively. So for me, I go with the fully correlated Frost, Coronado, Huberdeau. I think a Kadri one-off is always in play, but so it'd be Calgary 2 and the right line for Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, just because they're 12,800, then I guess Everly and Schwartz are in play. But the reason why we attack the Calgary Flames is like two reasons. One, they typically take a lot of penalties, and two, their penalty kill hasn't been very good. Well, Seattle doesn't draw any power plays, and their power play, both units are terrible. This is a good special teams matchup for the Flames. It is not a good one for Seattle. They're almost never in a good special teams matchup. So like at 12,800, like, yeah, they're playable. I'd rather just go play Vegas. You know what I mean? We'll get to the next game with Los Angeles. There's a Kings line I think I'd kind of rather play. There's definitely a couple Carolina lines that I'd rather play in that price range. So like, I don't know. I'm out on Seattle. For me, it is the Huberdeau line from the Flames. They're perfectly it's a perfectly correlated line at 15,100, and the Seattle penalty kill is not good. Now, it's not like the Flames have a great power play, but they do draw power play opportunities. They're at 2.9 power play opportunities per game since the Four Nations break, tied for 7th in the league, and I think 4th on this slate. So they do draw power play opportunities. Their power play is at least better than Seattle's, and these guys are perfectly correlated at 15,100. So if you're playing another mid-price stack somewhere else, like if you're playing a Montreal or if you're playing a St. Louis or a Washington, a Buffalo and Ottawa, like those types of things, I think this is one of those lines that you can put in with them pretty easily. So I kind of like that Huberdeau line. Frost and Coronado have been good offensively together. 80 minutes, 3 expected goals, 3.1 actual goals per 60 minutes, and they're getting a lot of ice time. Because these guys are all in the power play together, and because Backlund is out, the top 6 is getting a fair amount of minutes. These guys are getting 19 to 21 minutes. So I kind of like the Huberdeau line here. I think it's my favorite line in this game. I guess there's some playable stuff on the Seattle side, but I just think there are other lines in that price range elsewhere on the slate I'd rather play.
Yep. And before we get to the last game here, almost 400 of you watching between YouTube and Twitter. As a reminder, MLB season does start on Thursday, 4:05 Eastern lock on DraftKings. I think it's a 9-game slate. If you are interested in trying out the tools for $1, including the Sims, you can click on the link in the chat. Use promo code CYCLE. That will get you access for $1 until April 4th, where it will renew whether you choose weekly or monthly. So you want to give that a test run, click the link, promo code CYCLE. $1. Until April 4th. Let's get to this miserable last game. My New York Rangers. I shouldn't claim them out loud, but I will. They have a 2.5 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 3 total. I don't know if we got news on Trevor Moore yet. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. Kings news is hard to come by nowadays, but the Rangers are going. They have lines with people on them. They have Panarin, Trocheck, Othman, Zibanejad, Kreider, Cooley, JT Miller, Lafreniere, Johnny Brzezinski. Kings going Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere, Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Fogle, Deneau, either Trevor Lewis or Trevor Moore. I haven't seen any news yet. We will see. Here's the thing. This is a tough matchup for the Rangers going into Los Angeles. I don't particularly like these lines for DFS for a couple reasons. Moving Zibanejad back to center is a mess, but that gives them 3 lines, and I have no faith that anyone's going to play decent minutes here. JT Miller with Lafreniere is fine, but Johnny B is not it. I think Brennan Othman could be fine with Panarin and Trocheck. This is just a miserable matchup, and I'm not going to pay $15.5 for them. they still have a good power play. So if you wanted to one-off a Panarin or one-off a Zibanejad, JT Miller, whatever, fine. Single entry, I'm probably out on the Rangers here. On the Kings side, I think it would be the Byfield, LaFerriere, Fiala line. If you want to go to the Kopitar line because they're fully correlated, I think that's fine. I just prefer Fiala, Byfield, LaFerriere. Like, there's no matchup concerns. The Rangers suck defensively. They're probably going to avoid Fox anyway. Like, I would imagine Fox goes out or tries to anyway. I know it's in Los Angeles. They're going to try to get him out against that Kopitar line. So it would be Fiala, Byfield, LaFerriere. It depends which Trevor's on the third line because I think both are playable. But with Trevor Lewis there, they're only 12,600. And you can throw them in the bucket of filler lines that are playable against a bag of ass Rangers bottom six. So I don't mind either Trevor there. It's just a lot cheaper with Trevor Lewis. So if Lewis is there, I don't mind them as a filler.
Yeah, I'm pretty out on the Rangers here. Good luck to them spreading the offense across three lines. They're trying to get to the playoffs. Since the Four Nations break, the Kings have the fourth lowest expected goals against at all strengths. They're just behind Colorado and Florida. This is a terrible matchup, and I don't think any of these lines stay together. So I'm out on the Rangers. I think for me, I don't mind Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar here. I do think, they're riding hot by shooting percentages. Obviously, they're shooting like 16%. But they're not using them in a shutdown role anymore. They have been using Phil Deneau a little bit more in that kind of sense. So it gets them out of the tough matchups, and I think he gets them away from Adam Fox, which is pretty important here. And the other thing is the Rangers have been taking a fair amount of penalties. 3 times shorthanded per game since the Four Nations break. It's the 4th highest rate in the league and the 2nd most of any team on this slate. It's a recent thing. They weren't taking as many penalties just before the Four Nations break. But if they do take 3 or 4 penalties, this Kings power play unit has been good with Kuzmenko. Again, a little bit of shooting percentage related. But if you give them 3 or 4 opportunities, it's a perfectly correlated line. At 16,700, it feels pretty expensive. Like, they're right in that Blues, that like Shen, Kyrou, Holloway line range. They're in that that Montreal range. They're in that Vegas 1 range. Like, I think there are some other lines I like better in that price range, but I do think Kings 1 is playable. Going to be honest, this is the kind of game where I think like the defensemen and the goalies get my interest more than the forwards do.
Yeah. And I sure as shit am not staying up till 10:30 Eastern to watch this Rangers team. Let's talk about defensemen. At the top of the board, the 555 is full, by the way. Probably filled like while we're on the show. Cale Makar, 8K. After that, Rasmus Dahlin, Josh Morrissey, Sanderson, Hedman. Those are the guys 6K to 6,400. Obviously, Makar, I think, is in a great spot. He's kind of in a league of his own here. Don't mind Hedman, but I don't particularly love the top range outside of Makar. I think it's more in the mid range that I will be making a living if I'm not playing Makar. I don't know if you have any different opinions on the 4 guys from 6,000 to 6,400, but I much prefer to spend down if I'm not paying for Makar.
Yeah, I mean, Makar has the top projection by nearly 3 fantasy points on Stochastic here tonight, so he's clearly the top play, but his point per dollar value falls a little bit below Hedman. It is a great matchup for Tampa Bay, and if you don't want to pay up for a super expensive top line, you don't want to, play a second line where they don't have anybody on the power play, I think just one-offing Hedman is fine. You know what I mean? Just because if he was like 7,100, then I'd be like, I'll just pay the extra 900, go play Makar. But where you're saving $2,000 and it's as good of a spot for them as it is Colorado at home to Detroit, I think Hedman's certainly in play. I don't mind Dahlin either. Again, Ottawa's been kind of on a slide. Dahlin's staying involved offensively, even if he's not always racking up points. So I think I would go Makar, Hedman, Dahlin in this game, or on this slate, sorry. Makar is my favorite play amongst the blue liners. Let's be clear about that. The mid-price range with Mackenzie Weegar back, I think he's definitely playable for Calgary. I was pretty gung-ho on playing Rasmus Anderson, Rasmus Anderson, power play one and all that. But with Weegar back, I think Weegar is fine. Thomas Chabot, I think, is just fine for Ottawa at 5,200. He hasn't been getting like high amounts of ice time lately, but 22, 23 minutes against the Sabres is perfectly fine. Devin Taves, like if you don't want to pay up for Makar and you're worried that Red Wings might not take a ton of penalties or whatever, like Taves at 4,300 seems like a pretty good bet to me. Jake Middleton from Minnesota, like still no Brodin, Declan Chisholm hurt. Like Jake Middleton played 25 minutes last night. He might have to play that again here tonight. That feels like a block shot bonus waiting to happen. Going down a little bit, Owen Power and Dmitry Orlov are projecting reasonably well. So is our boy Artem Zub, your boy. I don't mind him. Keandre Miller has been getting minutes for the Rangers, some pretty good minutes. Adam Larson, the same for Seattle. Matt Grzelcyk, not a great power play matchup, but, top power play time, still top power play time for 3,200. For Washington, Jacob Chikrin, they said, is a game time decision, if I'm not mistaken.
He took a skate blade to the wrist, right?
Yeah. Seems like he's going to be fine. If he doesn't play, I don't mind playing John Carlson, but like Rasmus Sandin at 2,900, like that's a guy that played 20 minutes last game. He might have to get a lot of minutes, or, not a lot, but like 20, 21 minutes if Chikrin's out. So he's a sub 3K guy. Kevin Ball, I think, is just fine. For Minnesota, like going to Zach Bogosian for min price 2,500 with Brodin and Chisholm out, I think is okay. Montreal, I think like Jaden Struble is kind of in play. It's mainly because he's playing with Lane Hudson and they play a lot with the top line. So I don't mind playing Struble in that sense. But he's not a guy I'd be necessarily heavily targeting.
Yeah, the one guy I had, he's on the Capitals, and you might see a minutes bump if Chikrin doesn't play, and he's already been playing, 17, 18, 19 minutes. Trevor Van Riem's like 2,600 if you need a super cheap punty punt. Let's talk about goalies. I don't want to, but we're gonna. Top of the board is a bit of a scene as always. You always see Pyotr Kochetkov at the top at 8,500. I don't love it. I guess he's fine in cash. GPPs, you really need a shutout. Like Mackenzie Blackwood, I think, is fine-ish at 8,400. Don't love spending that much either. Like if it's Stellaris for Toronto, he's also fine. Again, I don't love spending that type of money for a goalie. Dustin Wolf at 7,900. Like their biggest issues on the penalty kill. And Seattle's power play isn't great, so don't mind Wolf at 7,900. Hellebuck, I think, is fine at 7,900. He may actually see some volume. He's fine. Montembeau at 7,600. Aiden Hill. There's a lot of goalies that I like, none that I truly love. I think Igor's interesting at 7,400. You can call me a homer, but the Rangers suck defensively, and at that price, if he comes near a saves bonus, I think he could pay off with that salary. And we've seen the Kings have trouble score at times. For some reason, Thomas Grosnick is in the player pool randomly. I just wanted to mention his name. If I'm going super cheap, not that I really want to, nor do I think it's a great idea, UC Saros is 6,900.
Kochetkov and Stolarz are the two top projected goalies, and it's the shutout equity. They both have at least a 10% chance of a shutout here tonight per Stokastic. They're in a tier of their own in that sense. So like you said, unless they get a shutout, you might be in tough for a good DFS score. Then again, there are some nights where, like, if my goalie got 9 points, I'd be thrilled. So, like, times are tough in the goalie streets. For me, it's Dustin Wolf at the top of the board, just because he is under 8K. There's not really any special teams matchups concerns for Calgary at home against Seattle. Seattle's just not a very good team. So I think it's Wolf. Aiden Hill, I think, makes a lot of sense on the road against Minnesota as well. He's the 4th highest projected goalie on the board, and he has the highest projected of any goalie under 8K. So Wolf and Hill, really, for me, if you want to go cheaper, if you want to go on the other side of the Calgary game, like, Calgary doesn't have a great power play. Joey Decord is only 7,500 as long as he gets to start. I think he's playable. And I also mentioned Igor. Like, it's not like I know the Kings have had a couple big offensive games recently. This isn't a great offensive team, I don't think. And if the Rangers win tonight, I think it's going to be a game where, Igor saves 31 of 32 and the Rangers win 3-1. I don't think it's, Igor saves 24 of 30 and the Rangers win 7-5. You know what I mean? Or 7-6. I don't think that's how the Rangers win tonight. So I don't mind Igor at 74 of 100. I think him and Decord are kind of the two cheap-ish, or about as low as I would go. Like, we always say any cheap goalie against Carolina is in play. I think Saros is fine if you do need the salary savings, but I'm not putting him in and then building my lineup. It's like if I build my lineup and I need a goalie at that price and I don't want to change my lineup, then I put him in.
Yeah. We may be back tomorrow, depending on the GPPs. We'll for sure be back on Thursday. I would imagine the GPPs on Thursday aren't going to be great with MLB, but we will be here for the big slate. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going to go with a fairly impressive rookie from this season. I'm going to go with Jackson Blake.
I'm going the Ragin' Tage Thompson. The Ragin' Tajan. I have problems, issues. I will address those. Good luck, everybody. Remember, promo code CYCLE with the link in the chat will get you access for MLB, all the tools until April 4th. So good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll see you in the Discord, and hopefully you win some money.
Good luck tonight, everybody.